Hey guys, welcome to the Bold Hairspring, Ivan here, and today I have a very interesting watch for you to have a look at. This Sea-Gull Army 1 is a commemorative edition military-inspired watch, which I bought a few weeks ago from AliExpress. It's the first Sea-Gull to appear on the channel and the second I've ever owned. And what can I tell you? Overall I quite like it, it's a really good looking piece, the dial is gorgeous, and the specs are not bad either, but it's far from being perfect. In fact, there are a couple of things that will stop quite a few people from purchasing one. I sold this watch on AliExpress 3-4 months ago, but at almost €300 guys, it seemed a bit expensive. So I just put it in my cart as I usually do with watches I'm interested in purchasing, and forgot about it until last month when AliExpress had its 11th anniversary sale. So I was able to pick this one up for €201 from the Sea-Gull official store. I'll leave their link in the description below, and €200 guys is a fair price for this watch in my opinion. However, the price has changed and now it's a little bit more expensive. At the moment of recording this video, you can buy this exact model for $289, or you can go for the khaki green model for $266, while the black PVD one costs $277. The watch took 2 weeks to arrive to Spain and it came in a military green canvas box, which is quite nice. Besides the watch, I received a nice washable Sea-Gull branded microfiber cleaning cloth and a watch travel case, which I believe Sea-Gull gave only to those who ordered the watch during the sale. As I said in the intro, the model I have here is the commemorative edition which Sea-Gull made as a memorial to the Chinese People's Volunteer Army and its intervention in the Korean War, which reached international proportions in 1950 and ended in 1953. As you can imagine guys, just like any war, the Korean War was extremely tragic and it resulted in millions of people losing their lives. For that reason alone, you may want to think carefully before getting this watch, as it is the kind of watch that can get you into trouble. And I've already been warned about it by a few friends of mine who are well aware of what it symbolizes. So keep that in mind, and if you're like me who didn't know much about the Korean War, I'll leave a link in the description of this video for you to check it out. Now let's start talking about the watch itself, and as always I'll go through the dimensions first. The case diameter measures 43mm, the lug to lug is 50mm, and the thickness is almost 14mm. What's unusual though is the 24mm lug width, which means that you won't be able to use your favorite straps. However, the supplied one is of decent quality, it's made of canvas with cuff in the interior. At first it's very stiff, but give it a week on the wrist guys to break in and it will become wearable. On this patch here it says Chinese People's Volunteer Army, in Chinese of course, and finally the stainless steel buckle is branded. Here is the obligatory wrist row, and as you can see this watch has a lot of wrist presence, and that's mainly due to its dimensions and large dial, but the watch sits comfortable on the wrist, it's not too heavy either, 90 grams, and I have to admit that I really like how it looks on my 17cm or 6.7 inch wrist. When it comes to the build quality, this Sea-Gull feels very solid. The whole case is made of 316L stainless steel, and you get a screw down crown and case back, thanks to which the watch is 100 meters water resistant. The crown is signed, it's big, it's easy to grip, and it has crown guards. And here is a closer look at the case back, which is embossed with a star shield. Finally, on the side plate, which can be found on the left flank of the case, there's some Chinese characters and the number 1, which from my quick research mean Army number 1, but the symbols refer to soldiers who engage in combat on foot, so I guess a better translation would be Infantry number 1. Then the case is mostly vertically brushed with high polished accents here and there, such as on the crown and the bezel. I must say though that the brushing is pretty standard for the price point, and while it's not bad, it's definitely not on the same level of, let's say, San Martin. And I do wish that the bevels on the lugs were a bit more pronounced. Next, let's talk about the dial, as it really deserves your attention. It sits behind a piece of flat sapphire crystal, which I'm not sure guys, as I can't find any information about it, but it looks to me that it doesn't have any AR undercoating applied, but once again I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, the dial is really beautiful and very well executed. The thing that surprised me the most is that the upper half is matte finished, while the lower one has a sunburst effect. In that respect, the dial is quite unique, and I really like its military desert storm color, which can look brighter or darker depending on how light hits it. On the dial we also find another historical reference, as the two different finishes are separated by a line which represents the 38th parallel. The 38th parallel is basically the name given to the line of latitude 38 degrees north, which roughly demarcates North and South Korea. That border was set by the US as an army boundary in 1945 and it was 284 kilometers long, which explains the two lines of text at 6 o'clock. Oh, and the characters at 12 o'clock are simply branding and they mean China Sea-Gull. Then, just like with most military-inspired watches, the dial is extremely legible thanks to the big applied Arabic numerals and the large sword hands. The second hand is also quite nice, you can see that it has a red tip and a star counterweight. As you may have noticed though, the finishing on the handset is pretty rough, and I don't know if this is something that Sea-Gull did on purpose, but in my opinion the hands would have looked much better if they were finished the same way as the case. Another aspect of the watch that isn't great is the lume. It's not bad by any means, but I've seen better at this price point. Anyway, it's decently bright, it lasts enough, but the application on the hands is not very generous, and for that reason they fade faster than the hour markers. For comparison, here is my Orient Kamasu, which I'm sure you agree does a much better job in the dark. Moving on, let's mention the movement. Inside this watch you'll find the automatic Sea-Gull in-house caliber ST25 with 25 joules and approximately 45 hours of power reserve. It hacks, it hand winds, and it beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It's the non-date version, which means that when you pull the crown out, there is no ghost date position. Then the accuracy has been a bit inconsistent, guys, but still very good. Most of the time the watch will run at about -1, -2 seconds per day, while other days it would go 10 seconds fast. My biggest complaint, however, is that the hand winding feels very gritty. I'm not sure if my camera can pick this up, but it's not smooth at all, and there is also a bit too much resistance, which makes screwing down the crown a bit more difficult than it should be. So for 200 euro, which once again is what I paid for this watch, I'm quite pleased with the quality and the dial is just fantastic, I really like it. However guys, this watch is a memorial to a brutal war in which millions of soldiers and civilians lost their lives, and that's why I'm probably not going to keep it. How about you though? Would you wear this watch being aware of its historical aspect? Let me know in the comments below. Now let me suggest a couple of affordable alternatives real quick. The first one you may want to have a look at is this Gustav Becker, also available on AliExpress. It looks like the case design is exactly the same. It has a sapphire crystal, the movement is a Seiko NH35, which I actually prefer, but the water resistance is just 50 meters. Another alternative is Casio, or however it is pronounced, very similar specs to the Gustav Becker, but it's smaller, just 41mm in case diameter, and besides the khaki dial there are also black and blue options available. Finally, the last one is from a brand called Blu-ray. It also has a 41mm case, but the dial design is different. Same specs, sapphire crystal, Seiko NH movement and 50 meters of water resistance, just like the previous two, but at 74 euro, this one is the cheapest out of the three. You can find the links to all of these in the description of this video. Alright, I guess that's the end of today's video, guys. The dial of this Sea-Gull is fantastic, as I said many times in this video, but the history that's inspired by is difficult to ignore. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, make sure you subscribe to the channel as I upload weekly, take care and I'll see you in the next one.